The first thing I do after school is drag the school bell into the alley to collect protect. But instead of getting angry, the school bell voluntarily asked to. I find myself transported into as a small-time troublemaker. My main role is to push the main story forward, but I simply can't follow the script where the school bell protagonist suffers bullying. So I took advantage of the protection fee to promise to look out for her. At this moment, I stood at the back watching the girl approach slowly. For a moment, it felt like time froze. Everyone's gaze unconsciously focused on her. Her cheeks flushed slightly, clearly affected by the scorching summer heat. I was filled with shock. Although the novel described the female lead as very beautiful, seeing her in person was the first time I truly experienced her stunning. The male lead was handsome, but not breathtaking. Yan Yichin, you're doomed. I clenched my molars in frustration. Director Zhang pointed to the empty seat beside mine. It was to seat the female lead there. He cleared his throat, then shot a cold glance at Gu Chuyang. There's no space in the class, so I'll temporarily place Zhang Xiao next to you. If Zhang Xiao complains that you're hindering her study, you know the consequences. Okay, I replied flatly. As long as I don't provoke the female 2 weeks before exam, I probably won't have any trouble. After class, I slumped in my seat. This body likely pulled an all-nighter, yes, otherwise it wouldn't feel so sluggish. Zhang Xiao quietly glanced at her deskmate. Despite his intimidating expression, Zhang Xiao mustered the courage to greet him. Hi, I'm Zhang Xiao. I cast her a casual glance, and as expected, her demeanor matched the novel's. After the beauty next to him greeted the original host began both during and after class. He even threatened her not to tell anyone. Eventually, Zhang Xiao became so tormented that she fell into depression. At that point, the male lead appeared to. I didn't say much, just casually gave my name, and then laid down on the desk to nap. Zhang Xiao's expression turned She simply wanted to befriend him. So why was he so cold? Maybe he's just too tired, she muttered to herself. Zhang Xiao sat quietly in her seat, her body slightly curled up, her head almost buried in the desk. She could feel the faint, lingering gazes of others on her, as if they wanted to see right through her. Hearing the surrounding murmurs, she felt as if snakes were slithering into her ears. This made her already restless hands begin to tremble, and her eyes started to redden. Do they all dislike me? Just like back at the girls' school, Zhang Xiao shook her head, trying to shake off the unpleasant memories. She told herself, don't care about others' opinions or judge, just be yourself. But deep inside, she couldn't completely ignore it. At that moment, 2 male classmates mustered the courage to approach. Hey classmate, what's your name? Which school were you at before? Zhang Xiao's eyes lit up instantly. My name is Zhang Xiao, and I was at an all-girls school. The girl's slightly upturned lips formed an enchanting smile. The 2 classmates seemed to ignore everyone else around them. Before long, Zhang Xiao's desk was surrounded. Facing the barrage of questions, Zhang Xiao could only listen carefully and answer everyone's inquiry. At that, someone among the crowd took advantage of the commotion and suddenly yanked Zhang Xiao. She let out a small cry of pain, startled and looking around to figure out who had done it. Zhang Xiao scanned the crowd, but everyone just looked at each other, pretending not to know. Seeing how easy it was to bully her, the boy who had pulled her hair grew even bolder. Just as he was about to yank her clothes, I suddenly exploded in it. Gofan, if you touch her again, I swear I'll make you regret it. At my Everyone turned to look at Gofan. At that moment, Gofan's hand was still inches away from tugging at her shoulder strap. Realizing what he was about to do, he quickly, looking visibly embarrassed. I was speechless. In the original plot, the protagonist Yan Yichin intervened only after Gofan's serious. You knew what was happening from the start, yet you waited? Why wait until the 4th attempt to step in and demand an apology? I sat upright, coldly glaring at Gofan. He initially tried to argue, but when our eyes met, my icy stare pierced. He caved in immediately. I'm sorry, classmate. I promise it won't happen again. Please forgive me. Gofan decided survival was more. It's okay. I forgive you. Zhang Xiao quickly replied, trying to eat. Oh my, Gu Qiang's is way too intimidating. At that moment, the class bell rang. Before Yan Yichin returned to he cast a deep look at Gu Chuyang. He had planned to let Gofan tease Zhang Xiao twice before stepping in him. This way, Zhang Xiao would fully realize that he was helping her, maximizing her gratitude and good. Unfortunately, the well-planned rescue scene was ruined by that damned Gu Chuyang. Yan Yichin finally turned his gaze to Zhang Xiao, his lips curling into a devilish smile. Zhang Xiao, we'll have plenty of time. Zhang Xiao initially wanted to thank, but when she turned her head, she found Gu Qiang already asleep on his desk again. She gently poked his arm and whispered, Gu Qiang, the teacher is here. I know, don't bother. His gruff response startled her. During the class, Zhang Xiao found herself constantly glancing. The teacher noticed him sleeping several times, but instead of reprimanding him, chose to. At first, Zhang Xiao was worried for him, but the teacher only paused briefly before continuing the lecture as if, why isn't the teacher scolding him? That's so strange. This class's content had been taught before at her previous school, so Zhang Xiao found the double-period lecture somewhat dull. Is this the new student? You'll solve the problem on the blackboard. Zhang Xiao pointed at herself, and seeing the teacher nod in affirmation, she glanced at the question on the blackboard. She walked up to the podium and started writing on the blackboard with the chalk. After finishing, she double-checked her work and then put down the chalk, confident. Well done. You may return to your... The math teacher nodded approvingly at Zhang Xiao, but the answer is correct. Good work. Sitting at her desk, Zhang Xiao couldn't help but feel it. The applause startled me awake, and I groggily joined in, not even knowing what I was clapping for. Seeing my clueless expression, Zhang Xiao couldn't help but chuckle softly, could not help but let out a faint. I was quietly sitting in the cafeteria, waiting for my lackeys to bring them. This school, although recognized as one of the best in the province, still has a campus fight theme added by the... This was done to highlight the protagonist. Yan Yichen's hero saves the beauty trope works, although I find it... I still choose to accept this setting. After all, having a few lackeys to command at will isn't, even if they eventually turn on me. My chicken soup arrived. One lackey brought the soup, another brought dishes and rice. Before transmigrating, I was an orphan anyway. Nothing much to worry about. Since I'm here, might as well. Time to eat first. At this moment, Zhang Xiao walked. Can I sit here? Suit yourself, I replied casually. Zhang Xiao sat opposite me with a bright smile. The two of us ate lunch in silence. Not wanting to be the third wheel, my two lackeys moved to another spot. Can I sit here? A deep and magnetic voice interrupted. Zhang Xiao and I both responded simultaneously. Yan Yichen gave a hearty smile. That smile seemed to captivate Zhang Xiao for a moment. Wow, is this the legendary I kept eating while observing Yan Yichen and Zhang Xiao's her expressions didn't escape my notice. Confidently flipping his hair, he sat directly next to Zhang Xiao. I'm Yan Yichen. What's your name? My name is Zhang Xiao. Zhang Xiao, huh? Such a beautiful name, as beautiful as you are. Knowing the protagonist's over the top, this was still too much. I almost spat out my rice. A faint blush appeared on Zhang Xiao's. Haha, Yan, you're really funny. Humor is one of my strengths. I have many more for you to discover. Zhang Xiao, her big eyes darted around nervously. She didn't know what to say. Feeling helpless, she glanced at me, but I simply blinked at her and continued eating. You two lovebirds aren't leaving me out, are you? I finished my last bite of rice, burped, and got ready to leave for class. Zhang Xiao's eyes immediately lit up. Are you done eating? Then let's go. If you're leaving. Before Yan Yichen could finish, Zhang Xiao was already a few steps ahead. Watching Zhang Xiao happily trailing behind Gu Qiang, Yan Yichen's handsome face instantly turned cold. You think you can compete with me for her? Back in class, Zhang Xiao broke the awkward silence first. Yan Yichen is such an interesting person. Do you think he's handsome? I teased her. Handsome? Zhao genuinely pondered. I think he is quite good-looking. His gaze is focused and lively, almost captivating me. If I keep talking to him, I might have some inappropriate thoughts. So I turned away and stopped looking. Zhang Xiao seemed a bit dejected, muttering, hearing the sound of books flipping from the desk next to me, I let out a sigh of relief. Such a beautiful girl. Why would she end up liking someone like Yan? If only I could transmigrate into Yan Yichen. Forget it. No point dreaming about the impossible. That's all for today. Class rep, remember to assign homework. After class, Zhang Xiao slowly put down her book. Her bright, sculpted face now bore a faint trace of fatigue. She stretched her body gently, letting out a soft sigh. Her fair, slender hands reached high. Her fair and slender hands stretched high into the air. The entire surrounding area seemed to tremble slightly. Even the buttons on her shirt seemed on the verge. I woke up only when school was over. As soon as I looked up, I saw something so pleasing. Thank you, she said, tilting her head in confusion. For what? I was just muttering nonsense after. I stretched lazily, getting ready to leave. Zhang Xiao hurriedly called out, Gu Qiang, you forgot your backpack. It's fine, I waved my hand dismissively. My backpack has been sitting untouched for... Just then, something occurred to me. I suddenly stopped in my... I turned back and sat down at my desk again. Zhang Xiao, when you go home after school, whatever you do not take the shortcut in the alley. Even if it saves time, don't do it. Why? Zhang Xiao tilted her head curiously. Looking at this innocent girl in front, I had the urge to pinch her soft cheeks, but restrained where's your house? I asked, feigning ignorant. Fangjia Mountain, isn't it? The alley near the back gate of the might save you some distance, but that alley is full of gangsters. If you go in, you might not. Hearing this, Zhang Xiao, do they have tattoos? She asked timidly. Of course, they all have tattoos. They're the kind who won't even spit out the bones. Zhang Xiao's legs started trembling, and then it's really dangerous for me to go home. That's all I wanted to warn you about. I'll head out now. Seeing me about to leave, she instinctively grabbed the corner of my shirt. I turned around, puzzled, only to meet her pitiful eyes. What is it? I asked. Zhang Xiao opened her mouth to say something, but then decided against. Gu Chuyang, it seems like we're going the same. Shall we walk together? But after a while, she chose to remain silent. Gu Chuyang, it seems like we're going. Shall we walk together? At this moment, Yan Yichen suddenly. I frowned. Why are you still here? This area is indeed a bit dangerous. I can walk you home. Yan Yichen, ignoring me, focused on Zhang Xiao. Yan Yichen, why haven't you left yet? It just so happens I have some free time. I rolled my eyes thinking, does he have to be so obvious? All right, let's walk together. Seeing her agree, Yan Yichen smiled faintly. Women always fall for my irresistible charm, he thought. As we strolled home, I kept replaying the plot of this world in my mind, regretting how little I put into reading this book before. If I had, I wouldn't have so. Oh well, as long as I avoid I won't get caught up in the protagonists. After finishing the last months of high school, the male and female leads will be. Can I call you Yao Yao? Yan Yichen. Yao Yao? Zhang Xiao shivered. Her skin crawled at how casually he called her. I think. Do you know why I call you Yao Yao? Because it feels closer, like our relationship. Zhang Xiao could barely handle this strange, overly. Why is he so self-assured? She started to wonder if he might actually like her. But the thought was too as Yan Yichen kept the three figures emerged from. Seeing there were indeed bad guys in the end. Zhang Xiao couldn't help. This makes one wonder if he actually likes himself, but he's too proud to admit it. Yan Yichen kept awkwardly chatting. Just then, three men slowly emerged from the alley ahead. Seeing there really were bad guys in the Zhang Xiao couldn't help but feel afraid. Yan Yichen immediately shielded Zhang Xiao behind him. What do you want? Yan Yichen asked coldly. The leader of the men sneered, his gaze fixed on Yan Yichen. Behind him, Zhang Xiao looked on with fear and unease. Don't you know that to pass through here, you have to go through me? The man known as Wang Mazi stared at Yan Yichen maliciously. Yan Yichen didn't reply, his gaze becoming cold and distant. He slightly shifted his fists clenched tight, ready to fight. Boss, stop talking nonsense. Look at the girl behind him. She's quite a beauty. The man behind him, Liu Guo, rubbed his hands together with a sly grin. Exactly. Hey girl, don't stick with this pretty boy. Come with me. I'll protect you. He spoke as he slowly approached Yan Yichen. The girl turned pale with fear, hiding behind Yan Yichen in terror. Feeling the girl's fear, Yan Yichen turned and gave her a reassurance, signaling her not to worry. Then he raised his head and stared coldly at Wang. What do you want? Yan Yichen's voice was deep and icy. Wang Wu suddenly burst into his laughter, filled with ridicule and disdain. Who do you think you are? Daring to talk to us like that? Believe me, I'll finish you right here, he said as he swung his fist toward Yan Yichen. Just then, Yan Yichen dodged and avoided Wang Wu's attack entirely. He countered with an uppercut. Wang Wu missed the hit. Frightened, Wang Wu stumbled back. Damn! This kid might be trained. The other two also grew serious as the three moved to surround him. Zhang Xiao, seeing this, was so terrified she didn't even. Silently, she followed behind Yan Yichen. Suddenly, Yan Yichen looked behind them. Excitedly, he shouted, Director, help me! Everyone quickly turned around in panic, but behind them there was no one. Where's the director? No idea. Damn, did they trick us and run away? Damn it, how dare they fool me? We'll block them again tomorrow. Thank you, Yan Yichen, Zhang Xiao said. She rested her hands on her knees, breathing heavily in short, rapid breath. Yan Yichen smiled and waved it off. You're well. This was just a small matter. Looking at Zhang Xiao's delicate figure, Yan Yichen couldn't help but feel a sense of protectiveness. It's a good thing I was here. If I weren't, things could have turned out badly for you. He had actually wanted to grab Zhang Xiao and run together, but she ended up running even faster than him. This surprised him a bit. Zhang Xiao looked up, her eyes filled with gratitude. Thank you for helping me today. My house is nearby. See you tomorrow. Yan Yichen wanted to say more, but Zhang Xiao had already walked away. He stared at her fading silhouette, lost in thought. Forget it. There's always tomorrow. Yan Yichen chuckled softly. He was confident in himself. At that moment, I stood in front of a restaurant. In this world, I had parents, and they were quite wealthy. I'm back. Chuyang, since you're back, hurry and help out. I'm so busy I can't keep up. The sound of my parents bustling in the kitchen echoed. I quickly responded. Although the original character was a bit mischievous, he was a well-behaved and filial child at home. Dad, go help Mom first. I'll handle the cooking. Knowing his cooking wasn't as good as mine, my father reluctantly gave up the kitchen. Obediently, he went to help Mom. I skillfully picked up the spatula and began skillful and confident movements as if this had already become a part of my life. With a burst of enticing aroma filling the dish after delicious dish was served. An old customer commented, "Wow, Uncle, this dish is much better than the previous ones." After hours of bustling work, all the customers finally left. Every day, so many customers. It's a happy kind of trouble to have. My parents watched me as I carefully calculated the account. They exchanged a glance, but said nothing. "It's getting late. You need to get up early tomorrow. Go take a shower and sleep." My parents smiled warmly at me. Why is he so obedient at home, but not like this at school? No matter. It's fine if he doesn't get into college. Chiang is good at cooking. He can take over our restaurant, and the three of us can have a lighter workload. That's true. Besides, even college grads might not make as much as we do in a week. Should we tell him? Let's wait a bit longer. After my shower, the smell of oil and smoke had mostly washed off. I lazily lay on my bed staring blankly. Life felt so fulfilling now. Before traveling here, I was just an orphan, raised in a welfare home. I barely managed to get into a decent. I worked 14-hour days, with no holidays, only shifts. Every night, I sacrificed sleep just to have a bit of leisure time. I was so tired of it, always being alone. Crossing over to this, maybe it was heaven's way of pitying me. I was blessed with such a happy family. But then I thought of my fate, always overshadowed by the or ending up in prison. Unable to hold anything, I decided I wouldn't follow my predecessor's path. Early the next morning, after eating the dumplings my parents had prepared, I rode my bicycle towards school. After turning into a small alley, a sudden commotion caught my attention. "Heh, little girl, why are you alone today? Where's that pretty boy who was with you yesterday?" It seemed like a few thugs were surrounding a young girl, their words filled with menace and aggression. Encountering such bad luck so early, I initially didn't plan to get involved. As I was about to pedal forward and leave, a helpless voice, trembling with tears, reached my ears. "Please let me go." The voice sounded eerily familiar. My body froze. It was Zhang Xiao. Memories flooded back to me. In the original story, Zhang was often bullied by my predecessor at school. On her way home, she frequently faced harassment from this same group of thugs. They didn't just insult her, they also laid hands on her. Although the protagonist, Yan Yichin, he often only appeared after she had suffered. Why did the author write it this way? Just to emphasize the protagonist's redemption. And the protagonist, even when helping her, he'd add mockery on top. Throughout the novel, Zhang Xiao was the most pitiful. After appearing with the protagonist, she endured endless grievances. For me, Zhang Xiao was the only reason I could keep reading the novel. Every time she faced injustice in the story, I couldn't help but wish I could jump into the book, and at that moment, I made a decision. "Little girl, what a nice figure you have. Have you been touched a lot?" Lu Guozi's lecherous eyes stared directly at Zhang Xiao. Zhang Xiao held her face tightly with both hands, a red and swollen handprint clearly visible. "Why are you crying? Who told you to scream for no reason?" Wang Wu raised his hand harshly, ready to strike again. Zhang Xiao trembled in fear, her hands tightly covering her head, tears falling like tiny pearls. No matter where she was always the one being bullied mercilessly. Her heart was already filled with despair. Even though she heard the sound of an approaching bicycle, she didn't intend to call for help again. "Ha, old third, look how scared you made her. Such a pretty girl, how could you even hit her?" Wang Mazi laughed recklessly. Just as he eagerly reached out to grab her, I shouted, "Get your hands off her!" "Who's that? Do you want to die?" Wang Wu impatiently turned his head, but before he could finish a fist the size of a sandbag came into view. With a heavy punch, I struck Wang Wu's greasy, plump face. Wang Wu cried out in pain, his nose bleeding as he staggered, barely able to stand. With a quick step forward, I struck Wang Wu's neck and calf simultaneously. He spun like a whip, crashing heavily onto the ground. "You're looking for death." After Wang Mazi and Liu Guozi charged at me angrily. I took 2 steps back, then delivered 2 quick, aiming at their unprotected lower bodies. Wang Mazi barely touched my clothes before losing his balance and falling uncontrollably. Zhang Xiao looked up and saw this. She was stunned. "Is Guqiang really this strong?" I stared at the 2 men beneath me, struggling to sighed softly, raised his hand and delivered 2 punches. Then all 3 fell into a baby-like slumber. Zombie Yao, seeing the matter resolved, finally sat on the ground with a relieved. I crouched down, carefully examining Zombie Yao. His eyes were slightly red, his hair a bit disheveled. Tears shimmered in his large, watery eyes. He awkwardly raised his hands to cover his face. Tears began to fall once more. I look pathetic, don't I? Zombie Yao's voice trembled, choked with sobs. It felt like his heart was breaking in two. People who look good really are more sympathetic. I silently cursed my own weakness. Then I extended my hand, gently wiping the tears from the corner of it. Zombie Yao's vision gradually cleared. What came into focus was Guqiang's sympathetic. He had been bullied before, and people always looked at him this way. He hated that look. While Zombie Yao drifted in thought, he suddenly felt something in his. It was Guqiang who had stuffed a lollipop in. He barely had time to feel him before Guqiang interrupted. I just saved you. Why do you still look like that? Zombie Yao's eyes lowered, his gaze dimming further. You saved me today, but what about later? When they recover, they might come after me again. What you just did might even make them more violent. With the lollipop in his mouth, Zombie Yao's words were muffled. So are you blaming me? I pinched Zombie Yao's other cheek in mock anger. No. I'm just blaming myself for not being. I'm really grateful you helped me today. Zombie Yao hastily explained in a panic. Suddenly, I thought of a good idea. How much money do you have on you? Over 500, quite a bit. All right, here's the deal. And you just pay me 200 a month. Not too much, right? Seeing Zombie Yao still staring blankly at me, I wondered if I was asking for too much. If you think it's too much, we can negotiate the price. No. I can give it now. Zombie Yao's eyes lit up as he snapped back. Who wouldn't want such a powerful ally as their. Seeing him about to pull money out of his pocket, I quickly reached out to stop him. Since I'm your ally from today onward, then I also need to take responsibility for not. Zombie Yao, a bit confused? This month's protection is on. I'll start charging next month. How does that work? Won't you be out of money? Who says I'll be out of money? I didn't explain, instead turning my gaze to the three unconscious men behind us. In Zombie Yao's stunned expression, I gave them a quick shakedown. Sure enough, I found quite a bit. After a quick count, I had around 700 or 800 yuan in total. Clearly, they hadn't been bothering just Zombie Yao. But what if they find out you took their money? Zombie Yao asked, worried. I waved my hand dismissively. What's the big deal? They deserved it. There's only 5 minutes until class starts. We're gonna be late. Zombie Yao hadn't expected to be late on just his second day. If the teacher scolded him, come on, it's no big deal. I hopped onto my bike. You sit on the back. I'll get us there fast. It was his first time riding on the bike of someone of the opposites. As we slowly left the alley, an old, slightly worn-out 28 bicycle appeared before us. I nudged the kickstand gently with my foot. With one foot over, I sat firmly on the bike. Then I turned and said, hop on. Zombie Yao hesitated for a moment, but eventually copied my move. Swinging one leg over and sitting down, he lightly pinched the corner of my shirt, looking a bit unsure. Isn't this dangerous? If you fall off, you'll have nowhere to cry. Hearing Guqiang's impatient tone, Zombie Yao felt a bit aggrieved, but obediently let go of my shirt. Instead, he wrapped his arms around my waist. As soon as he held on, my pupils shrank sharply. The unexpected sensation left my mind blank. Truly exceptional talent. Aren't we going? Zombie Yao asked in a small, aggrieved voice. Hearing this, I snapped back. I pedaled hard and shot forward, racing toward the school. Zombie Yao clung tightly to me the entire way, too scared to open, so I pedaled even faster. By the time we reached the school park, there was just about a minute and a half left. Zombie Yao jumped off finally stepping onto salt. He let out a sigh of relief. Aren't you gonna run? We'll really be late otherwise. Zombie Yao jolted at the thought. Let's hurry and run, he said as he started running in short hurry toward the teaching building. Run? Are you kidding? The word late doesn't exist in my dictionary. After being a good student for so long, it's time to be rebellious. Guqiang's old habits die hard, always late. This was the first time. It was oddly refreshing. I might have to try it again tomorrow. Zombie Yao, who barely made it to his seat on time, was also panting heavily. The zombie-like person sitting in their seat was also panting heavily at this. He looked sympathetically at Bu Shuyang, standing. If it weren't for him saving me, he wouldn't have been scolded. Oh, right. He still had a lollipop in his. You can't eat during class. Embarrassed, he took it out of his mouth. It was already licked clean. Only a bare stick was left. Thinking about earlier when he was still holding the lollipop in his mouth, his cheeks couldn't help but turn slightly red. Was this an indirect kiss? Sitting in the first row, Yao turned his head disdainfully. He had no interest at all in an idle troublemaker. None. Suddenly, he noticed the scar on the zombie's, although not very noticeable. Upon closer observation, The left cheek was slightly swollen. Looking at his messy hair and clothes, a wave of anger surged in his heart. Not long after, I walked into the Yan Yichen's gaze instantly turned icy cold. A strong fury rose within him. So it was you. You don't usually care about progressing, and now you're after the zombie? A glimmer of coldness flashed in Yan. He decided to teach me a lesson, to let me know the consequences of cross. I instinctively turned my head. Our gazes immediately met. His expression seemed ready to devour me. So this guy thought I was bullying the zombie, judging purely by surface appearances. How utterly ridiculous. As expected of a dramatic, if this were following the original, it might actually have been me who did. The first class finally ended. I stood in the corner. Just as Mom hearing Zhang Xiao's question, I waved my hand dismissively. Since starting today, you're my little sidekick now. Go get me something to eat. No problem with that. No problem at all. Zhang Xiao nodded in agreement. He also fully agreed with Gu Chuyang's opinion. What do you want to eat? I want chocolate bread. If there isn't any, just buy one. After saying that, I yawned. Zhang Xiao confidently patted his chest. I'll make sure to get it done. Go quickly. I turned my head away. Where's the school store? Zhang Xiao asked a bit shyly. Only then did I remember that he was a transfer. Zhang Xiao, I also haven't had breakfast yet. How about we go together? I looked at Yan Yichen with a playful expression. Reading the novel, I never noticed he was this clingy. Sure. Let's go together. You can help me find the chocolate bread. The reason Zhang Xiao's toward Yan Yichen changed was actually because he helped him. Since then, Zhang Xiao believed that Yan Yichen was a lively and helpful person. Do you really like chocolate bread? Yan Yichen said with a smile. Today is Thursday. Every Thursday, the store shelves are stocked with more than 10 kinds of delicious. If we go now, we might still get some. He winked playfully, as if hinting at something. Zhang Xiao's eyes lit up. Maybe that's exactly what Gu Chuyang. We'd better hurry down. Yan Yichen, seeing Zhang, could easily guess his preference. Zhang Xiao loved chocolate, and he loved it a lot. What should we do? There are so many. Zhang Xiao looked visibly disappointed. Yan Yichen laughed heartily. What if I said I had what if I told you I have to buy chocolate bread? How would you thank me then? I'll pay a bit more to buy yours. But I'm not a scalper. Chen, I got it. A chubby man ran up to them, panting heavily. Yan Yichen took the chalk from Liu Feng's hands and handed it to Zhang Xiao. Don't overthink it. This bread is my treat to you as your first friend at this school. Zhang Xiao, a few days ago, was delighted to have made. He was very happy. The first task assigned by Gu Chuyang was completed. Gu Chuyang, time for breakfast. Seeing the bread in his hand, I was a bit surprised. I remember this bread is hard to get. How did you get it? Zhang Xiao proudly lifted his chin. I have connections. Not bad. Did you have breakfast? Most of the breakfast items were taken. What's left doesn't appeal to me. Zhang Xiao looked a bit. I split the bread in half and handed it to Zhang Xiao. Since you're my little sidekick now, I won't treat you unfairly. Here, try this bread. It's pretty good. Thank you. He carefully reached out with both and took the chocolate bread I handed him. Originally, Zhang Xiao thought he'd have to go hungry. Unexpectedly, Gu Chuyang with his had a kind heart. He took a small bite and smiled contentedly. The whole morning passed quickly. The morning felt excruciating for me. At first, I wanted to study hard and aim for a good university. But with my family owning that earns millions a year, there's really no need for me to come on, let's go eat. Just as we stepped out, 2 students from another class greeted us. Boss, I already bought lunch for you. Xiaoyan spoke first. Today there's braised pork and stir-fried. Lin Fen chimed in. Xiaoyan, you eat out for lunch today. And remember to bring an extra meal tomorrow. I said nonchalantly. Their gazes unintentionally shifted to Zhang Xiao. Is this the new girl our boss fancy? She's so beautiful. Sis-in-law! The 2 lackeys greeted her respect. Zhang Xiao blushed at their words. She waved her hands nervously. I'm just Gu Chuyang's desk mate. They looked at each other. So what should we call her? Seeing these 2 somewhat clueless lackeys, I sighed. She is indeed my desk mate, but she has also become my sidekick now. Boss, you're amazing. The 2 spoke in unison. Here's 50 yuan. Xiaoyan, you eat out today. I took out a 50 yuan bill from my pocket. Xiaoyan took it with trembling hands. Thank you, boss. Following you was the best decision. Seeing how excited Xiaoyan was, I couldn't help but feel a bit surprised. Just 50 yuan and you're this excited? It seems the previous me really was stingy. I patted their shoulders and said sincerely, It seems you've suffered these past 2 years following, but don't worry. From now on, as long as I have meat to eat, you two will have soup to drink. Zhang Xiao was touched by this brotherly. She didn't expect Guqiang. I smiled at the two of them. It looks like these two free helpers are. Yao Yao, let's go eat. Yan Yichen leaned closer and said gently, how about we eat together? All right, let's go together. Boss, is that pretty boy causing trouble again? Do we deal with him or not? I said this and took the lead. Zombie Yao followed with loud, came right up. Even though Yan Yichen didn't like being with Bu Shuyan, he decided to get along with Zombie Yao. Yan Yichen casually stuck his hands in his pocket, slightly raised his chin. His eyes showed confidence and pride. Damn. How does this young man look stronger than my... Xiaoyan could hardly hold it in. Brother Chen, over here, Liu Feng waved at Yan Yichen. Let's eat over there. Yan Yichen gave Zombie Yao a gentle smile. I frowned. Not only did they ignore us this time, but they also blatantly stole people from. If other school groups saw this, they'd laugh at me for 2.5. If I keep in, even my two underlings will lose respect. So what if she's the female? I'm taking her today for sure. Just as Zhang Xiao was about to ask before he could speak, a hand rested on his shoulder. Zombie Yao and Wildcat's eyes widened. They stared dumbfounded at Guqiang. When they looked up, they were met with his slightly displeased gaze. The thought of being embarrassed was scared away by Guqiang's look. Guqiang really is terrifying. If you just take Zombie Yao in front of everyone, don't I need to save face? I said grimly. You should know. The original is a big name in this school. His status among the troublemakers is otherwise, how could he highlight the protagonists in the original story? Yan Yichen's already gloomy expression became even darker. His gaze fixed on Bu Shuang's hand on Zombie Yao, the hand on the He dared to take advantage of Zombie Yao, right? His body trembled slightly. Clearly, he was trying hard to suppress his inner anger. He knew that rushing up to teach Bu Shuang a lesson might cause unnecessary trouble. We'll see. Yan Yichen snorted coldly and turned to leave. I acted tough in front of Yan Yichen, but deep down I was a bit scared. No one knows the protagonist's revenge better than once words are spoken, they can't be. Now, even if I regret it, it's too late. Zombie Yao stood there helplessly, her small hands tightly clenched in front of her chest, seemingly unsure how to handle the situation. Bu Shuang, can we eat now? Zhang Xiao's voice trembled slightly. I reluctantly let go of my hand. Only then did the three of us sit down to eat. Zhang Xiao took small bites of her food, but she couldn't seem to relax. Looking at the uneasy Zombie Yao, I sighed, do you really not want to sit at our table? There's no need to look so miserable. Zombie Yao was stunned for a moment, then quickly shook her head. No, it's not that. I just feel like someone is watching me. Zhang Xiao's voice grew softer because she wasn't sure if someone really was looking at her. I raised an eyebrow after hearing that. I casually glanced around the cafeteria, and I noticed Yan Yichen was sitting diagonally across from us. You won't even eat the fatty meat? The sudden topic change caught her off, and she didn't react right away. I feel like fatty meat is greasy. Before I came here, I always lived frugally, saving up for the bride price for my future wife. At that time, I only ate meat once a week, and it was always braised pork. From Zombie Yao, some of the fatty meat was even bit. Zombie Yao's cheeks turned red. He was just about to say that some of it, but when he looked up, he saw Bu Shuang's expression of frustration and disappointment. Kid, do you know that some people, while work, can only eat meat once a week? Zombie Yao listened and shamefully lowered her head. Lesson learned. Lin Fang, sitting nearby, looked at me indifferently. Didn't you always dislike eating fatty meat? At noon, back in the class, the teacher said, students, do well on, we don't have much time left. I took the paper, trigonometric proofs, set, probability. It felt like haunting memories attacking me again. Forget it, let's see how much I've got left in me. As I rummaged through I realized I didn't have a pen. I poked Zombie Yao with my hand, lowering my voice to ask, do you have an extra pen? Zombie Yao opened her pencil case, smiling as she handed me it was completely pink, with a Hello Kitty design. I silently took the pen. When I looked at Zombie Yao again, she was already covering her mouth. 2 hours passed quickly. After handing in the test, only one word echoed in my mind, finish. Yao, I heard you were top of your grade at the girls' school. After the mental storm of the test, I didn't even want to mock the bootlicker in front of Haha. That was all in the past. Yan Yichen gave a devilish smile. How about we have a competition then? Let's see who scores first in this class test. Fine, let's compete. Zhang Xiao's eyes sparkled with determination. She confidently took on the challenge. The world of geniuses is I'd rather take a nap. When school ended, Because Bu Shuang was with us, Zhang Xiao wasn't as scared. At the entrance of the small alley on the Yan Yichen proactively stepped forward and let's go home together. Zombie Yao thought having more people was not. Just as he was about to agree, I stepped in and said, no need. Today we're taking the front gate.